Hey Art Nerds, we are going to be walking through how to create a clay whistle. So this is kind of like what it looks like in profile view. You got the body of the whistle, you got the mouthpiece, and then we'll eventually be adding stuff to it to make it more interesting, or you can even make it look like an animal, whatever floats your boat. But this is how you kind of get started. You have a small piece of clay. Notice how big it is in comparison to my hand, so you don't need a ginormous piece. And the first thing that you do is you are going to be tapping it into a big sphere of clay, okay? So we're going to be tapping away, getting rid of those corners. Rolling on the table is okay, but I don't recommend rolling it if your workspace is covered in canvas. That likely will soak up a lot of your water, and then your clay piece will be a lot drier a lot sooner, and that might not be what you want. A lot of times we want our clay piece to be as wet as possible for as long as possible so we can keep working with it, okay? And once you get it to be pretty close to a nice spherical shape, you can take a clay wire, or a fettling knife works out just fine, or even if you only have a butter knife, okay, that'll work out just fine, and you're going to cut this sucker in half. Alright. Okay, so you're going to have two spaces. If you're not using a clay wire, a lot of times see how it smooshed it a little bit, so I'm going to get it more round in shape, okay? These are going to end up being the two halves of my whistle, okay? Now, the next step is pretty simple. What you're going to do is you're going to take each of these halves and you're going to make them into a pinch pot, okay? And that is done just by dipping your finger right in the middle and pinching the walls of, essentially it's going to be kind of looking like a bowl, okay, or like a cup looking shape. I like to go back and forth between working and pinching it, and then also smoothing it to work on getting nice and even walls, not just the sides but also the base, okay. I also really recommend, if your nails are a little bit long, okay, they kind of gouge into clay a little bit, so keep those things short while you're working with clay. It'll make it a lot easier not to scratch up your piece. Alright, and you're going to be doing this for both sides, and we're going to zoom through that really quick, and then I'm going to show you how to even them out and put them together. So alright, so one of the things that you want to make sure is you get them roughly about the same size, okay? And these don't exactly, see how they don't exactly like go together the way I want them to, okay? What I do to kind of even them out a little bit is I actually tap them on the table. So I kind of shape them a little bit, give them a good tap, shape it, because I want to have a nice dome to each of my pieces here, okay? So the tapping, it gives it a nice flat surface for me to do some scoring and slipping on. Makes it a lot easier. Don't mind too much. See how it's not exactly even on the sides? That is okay. Your whistle will still work, okay? It's the swirling of air, not the perfection of your walls, that will make it actually work. There we go. Okay, let's make sure that these are roughly the same size. I gotta tap a little bit more. Okay. There, that's probably better. There, okay. So, look how they're roughly the same size. They line up pretty well. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be scoring and slipping both of these pieces to make sure that they connect really well, okay? And then I'm going to smoosh these together, okay? Now you want to be careful. You want to be pressing them together really well, but you also do not want to lose that dome that you've made on each side, okay? So don't press here, okay? You're pressing on the edges firmly, okay? And you are working on kind of blending these edges together. And sometimes it's really good to go back and you blend it, okay? Sometimes even taking your fork and kind of dragging some of the pieces over on each side, and then smoothing it kind of really seals that bond between layers, okay? So I encourage that as well. Do whatever you can to make these babies stick together really well. And I'm really liking what scoring on that seam does to connect my two pieces together. Okay, let's do a little bit more since I didn't do that at the beginning. There we go. Okay. So this is the first step, okay? This is the main body of your whistle. This is going to be where the air is going to be swirling around. Okay, if you want to roll it a little bit to make sure it's that nice round shape. There we go. That is a good size whistle. Okay, should be about, you know, like smaller than your fist. You don't want it to be too crazy big, especially if you're going to be adding a lot of stuff to it. Okay. So the next bit we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating a mouthpiece. So you're going to be taking a much smaller piece of clay. Oh, this is way too big. Okay. And since mine's already in a kind of a chunk, okay, I'm able to just cut out something that's roughly that size. I'll end up trimming it down a lot later. Okay. But if it's not exactly the shape that you want, you can always use a nice wad of clay and then tapping it into that more rectangular shape. Okay. So this is essentially going to be your mouthpiece. Okay. And trying to get it as prism-like as possible. And like I said, we will be trimming this down a little bit to fit the curved edge of our whistle itself, okay? So I'm going to show you what this kind of looks like, okay? So here's our mouthpiece. You can see that rectangular bit, and then we cut it at an angle so it fits that curve right there. That is very important. If I just did it and attached it like this, it would not be at the angle that I want, because I need the mouthpiece attached so this is level straight across the top. Okay, if it is not attached level straight across the top, I won't get the good swirling action that will actually cause the whistle to work. Okay, so we're going to set that aside and let's tweak this just a little bit because I need to cut it at my angle. I'm going to chop off a little bit with my fettling knife right here. If you have like a fork or any other kind of tool, that works out just fine. Okay, so I have a nice angle on here. Okay, and the next thing you want to do is you want to get this piece attached. Okay, so we're going to be scoring and slipping one more time. So nice amount right there. I'm going to really load that up on slip on this end, and then I'm going to figure out, this is actually going to help me where I want it to go, so I'm just going to like dab it really gently. Okay, marked where I want it. Okay, scratch that really nice. I can always smooth out if I scratch too much, making sure I got plenty of this on there. And attaching it really well, okay? Now, what I really recommend, in addition to scoring and slipping, is making sure you really blend your piece. And sometimes having an extra tool, popsicle stick works good, especially because we're going to be using it later, okay? Works wonderfully in helping us blend. See how nice that blended it, okay? Right across that seam there. And I always get nervous on joints like this, so that's why I always keep a little bit of clay handy to make a little tiny coil or a snake of clay. And usually I dunk it in the slip, but it looks like there's a good wad of slip there, so I'm able to actually press this right in there. Use my popsicle stick once again to really press it into that seam, and it almost kind of like just reinforces that attachment right there on the edge of my mouthpiece. Okay, really blending that in all the way around. There we go. Add a little bit more of a snake on the other side, and then we'll be good to go. That one looks like it needs a little bit more slip though. There we go. So you want to make sure that things are well attached on here, okay? You don't want your whistle falling apart while you're in the middle of working on it. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so double checking a couple of things. We got my nice sphere. We got this really flat, streamlined edge right across the end, okay? Depending on what you want for your whistle, you can chop this a little bit shorter. I think it's a little bit long for what I want, so I'm going to make it a bit shorter. Okay, and then always, since when you cut with a fettling knife, it kind of smooshes it a little bit, straighten it out, get it the way you want it. Okay, now this next bit that we're going to be doing is we are going to be adding the hole that goes straight through our mouthpiece. So it will go through the mouthpiece and come into this side. I'm actually going to show you on this one, which is actually a profile cross section, okay? And what I'm going to be doing is I am going to be shoving my popsicle stick through the center of the mouthpiece up to about here, and I want it kind of lined up so it ends up being right on the inside of my clay piece there, okay? And that's why my mouthpiece is about this thick. It's about twice as thick as the walls of my sphere that I made, of my 2 pinch pots, okay? So that's why it's this thick, okay? I forgot to mention that earlier, my reasoning by the size, so now you know. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to very carefully line this up right in the middle, okay? And I am going to be shoving it straight through as good as I can. I'm going to do my best. Okay, so always double check. Looking at the top, making sure it's going nice and straight. Looking at the side, make sure it's nice and level. Okay, and you're going to be pushing it all the way through. And you will be able to feel it when you are punched through. So it'll be like, it like gives just a little bit. That's how you know you went all the way through. And I'm not going to take this out yet, okay? This will help us in our next step as we create this hole at the top, okay? Notice how my hole is straight up and down right here in front of my mouthpiece, but it's at a 45-degree angle right here, okay? And that angle is extremely important, okay? I'm going to turn it up like here. Notice how it's going to end up being just about as wide as our mouthpiece itself when I have it cut out. There, I turned it so you can see it just a hair better. There you are. Okay, so imagine that being, you know, a little twice as big. Okay, so that's what our goal is right here. And I'm actually going to kind of just sketch it a little bit with my fettling knife. I know that it's going to be coming out about right here is where my mouthpiece kind of ends. So that's where I want to make my cut across the top. Okay, it's going to be a nice rectangle here. Oh, it's close to a square. That's all right. Okay, so what's going to happen is I'm going to be cutting it in from the top, and then I'm going to be cutting it in from the side, and I'm actually going to be cutting this at a 45-degree angle. Okay, and you can be very don't have to be very generous with it yet. You can always make the angle sharper. Okay, so start with making a little bit less than 45 if you can. If you notice, yeah, see, I'm not able to get that angle open up, so then I'll just make this a little bit longer into that rectangle that I was thinking of before, and that'll help me get it so I can get through and be able to see my popsicle stick once I am able to cut through into the bottom there, okay? So, like I said, this is still very plastic clay, so you want to be gentle with it as you're working with it, and you also do not want to lose these pieces inside, because once you lose one, it'll be kind of tough to get it out, so be very careful. Alright, do you see how you can see inside now? Okay, there's my popsicle stick. That's good. Okay, but I want to clean this up a little bit, so I'm actually going to move my popsicle stick out of the way. Okay, I don't know if you saw it, but when I moved out of the way, that little wad of clay there blocked the little hole. Okay, so some of this is going to be cleanup duty, trying to get this hole nice and clean. So I'm just using my popsicle stick to smooth that angle. Okay, cleaning up the side walls. Sorry if you can't see it super well. Okay, and there will be pieces that kind of hang under there. So sometimes your pinky might be small enough to sneak in there and get some of those pieces. Otherwise, use a popsicle stick, or if you need to use something smaller like a skewer or a toothpick, definitely go for it. There are some fancy tools you can probably use, but these ones work just fine and dandy. Okay, so I have it kind of cleaned up, but I think I still need to clear out that hole right here. There, okay, there's this little piece. Do you see it right there now? Okay, that's what's blocking my airway. So I'm going to see if I can get that out of there with my popsicle stick. There we go. All right. Okay, I'm going to go through and clean it one more time. Okay. Make sure it's nice and clean. Opening up the airway. Now, do not dismay if your whistle does not work right away, okay? Because you might have to do some playing around with this angle, or maybe there's a blockage inside there, so do not freak out. So I'm going to see if this works. See how it doesn't quite work? So that means I need to play around with it a little bit. And I notice that my angle right here is really sharp, okay? So I think I probably need to work on making this more of a 45-degree angle right here. So I'm actually going to try to scrape some of it away, which if it's at the wrong angle, it probably won't be very good at making the noise you want. So I'm going to do some finagling, pressing it a little bit, scraping some away. Eventually, I'll get it to work. So it's a good thing it didn't work out the first time. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this nice troubleshooting bit. All right. So all I did was see how I just made that angle a little bit sharper there? Okay, who knows? That might have fixed it, or maybe it still doesn't work and I need to get better at making whistles. So I'm going to clean that out one more time just in case. Oh, there's something blocking it. Maybe that was my problem. Who knows? Okay, not quite there yet. All right, we're having fun, aren't we? Okay, I'm going to lift that up a little bit. Maybe that's my problem. Who knows? So, but like I said, it will take a little bit of playing around with to get it so that that noise actually works, okay? I know it works because I have this other one right here, okay? Okay, he makes noise. makes noise pretty well, okay? It ended up being a almost done hedgehog, and I'm doing mouth to mouth to the hedgehog to actually, you know, make it work. But I'm still going to putz with this a little bit. I'm going to see if I can get it to work, and once I do, I'll let you hear the tune. So I'm going to keep putzing. All right, so it's not a super awesome sound, but it is getting pretty close. Let's give it a listen. I think I might have been pinching the mouthpiece shut when I was testing it too. There we go. It's not super awesome, but remember, if this is not your finished piece and you're still planning on making it like an animal or something, I highly recommend taking your popsicle stick and leaving it inside, and probably you'll snap it to be like a half popsicle stick, so then you can leave it in there while you're working. You don't have to worry about this smashing shut and losing a lot of your stuff going on, okay? Now, you can definitely tell that I got a little bit better, because remember how I first cut it out and my popsicle stick wasn't able to slide underneath, okay? See how I was able to slide right underneath the opposite end? That's what I think was the problem with mine. I think mine was a little bit too high or low. I can't quite remember. Regardless, he sounds a lot better now. Not quite as good as my other one that I was working on, but you know what? This is still workable clay, so that means he's not done yet. So I'll be able to tweak him as much as I need. But I hope that this was helpful in you kind of understanding how to get a whistle started. And if you want to make it into some sort of creature, remember this could be, you know, could be the face, could be the tail of something. It could be one of the legs, and you're building off of it to make something else. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do with a whistle, and I hope that this video was helping you in getting started.